So, as most of you would know, oh, hi, Els.
Hello.
Hi.
Helen, not in Bicheno. Helen in the Best Western Quarantine Hotel in Hobart.
Absolutely. Counting down the days now.
Yeah.
Counting down
Can
the
you
days.
see me all right? Am I all right on there, or do I need to move?
Absolutely. No, you're good. You're good. So I was just saying that we are in week 11 of 20-week program of virtual wine tasting.
I'm in week 12 of not being out of Bicheno.
Anyway, we started at the southern end of the wine region, down with Brim Creek, down at Marion Bay, and we've been working our way up. Hi, no visible means. Hi, Karen. Karen's welcoming you back to Tassie, Helen, as we all are.
Thank you.
All right, so we may as well get going because I reckon it's 5 o'clock. So this week's subject is the beautiful Craigie Knowe. Hi, no visible means. It's a property that was first farmed in the 1830s as part of the Amos estate. Now, the Amos family also set up Gala, and this is adjacent to Gala estate. Although the Gala estate, we'll tell you later the story about that. Not the same name, but still the same genes over there. So next door to as part of the Amos estate. But it was farmed, and then in the 70s, 1979, I think it was, a dentist from Hobart called John Ostwick came up the coast and bought Craigie Knowe, and he started to plant vines. People thought he was crazy. He got a lot of kickback, but the rest is history, as they say, because he was actually quite visionary. He planted in 79. He did his first vintage in 1983. He, along with his friend Julian Alcorso, who helped plant the vines,
famous as the son of Claudio Alcorso from the original Marilla estate, which is now where Mona is built. Yep.
Yeah, so with Julian, they planted the vines, and then when it came to making the wine, they got together and they made the first vintage. Okay. Apparently, John's daughters kind of crushed the grapes in the bath or in a wheelbarrow or something. Anyway, they got 11 bottles out of that first vintage. In 1984, the following year, they got 500 bottles. So not a huge amount. But then from 1985, he was producing commercially. Just an interesting aside, we'll do Freycinet in a couple of weeks, and they started planting a few months after John, but they became the first commercial winery because they reached that critical mass production amount quicker than John did. With 11 bottles in the first vintage, I don't think you quite call that commercial.
So it is okay that Craigie Knowe call themselves the first planted vineyard on the East Coast. I think that's what they do.
Well, yes.
But that's okay because they were.
Absolutely.
By a few months. Yeah.
I just want to say one more thing about the making of that first vintage, because I think it's quite interesting. If you go to their cellar door now, it's in a rustic old farm shed building on site, and inside that building is where John Ostwick made his wine from 1979. Hi, Craigie Knowe. Hope I don't say anything wrong. Right through until he sold the property
well, he first sold it to to an American investor, and then then it got resold onto the current owners. Sandy and Glenn Travers, who have done amazing things with it. Just amazing. They've just so rebirthed the vineyard and
really
the
modernised it.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. Anyway, going back to that first vintage, 2009 they bought it. Thank you.
There you go.
He sold it. So the rich American had it for 4 years, and then Sandy and Glenn came along in 2013. But way back in 1983, when the first vintage was produced, right through to 2009, John produced his wine in a very peasant-like, hands-on manner, using hand-driven wooden winemaking equipment, which Julian Alcorso's father, Claudio, had brought with him from Italy when he immigrated.
Yeah.
We
love that story.
We always dreamt of having some of that equipment on display at the farm shed, but unfortunately, by the time we got to the farm shed, it was all gone. Yeah. Never mind. So there we are. The first vintages carried on through. So what happened was in 2013, Glenn and Sandy went on a mini break, and they were driving around and they were in the neighbourhood and said, wouldn't it be nice one day to sort of semi-retire to, I haven't dulled my phone, I'm getting all these pings. Whoops. Wouldn't it be good to semi-retire to a vineyard? And lo and behold, they saw Craigie Knowe, they fell in love with it, and they bought it at a similar age that John had been and followed a similar path to him and followed in his footsteps. But as Helen said, have really built on it, built on John's strong foundations and wanting to pay homage to his passion and hard work. He's a good buddy of ours and we're very fond of him. And now we're very fond of Glenn and Sandy because the wines that it's producing are fabulous.
And it's a bit of a family affair. I mean, their son, young Alex, is working full time with them on the farm or on the vineyard. And good old Dad has a good go and helps out around the place every now and again as well when he's around. So it's that story of family-owned boutique vineyards in Tasmania that we still have many, even though the big boys, if you like, from the mainland have come in and have actually bought up some vineyards and whatever, and it's been fantastic because they've brought in infrastructure and capital to put into infrastructure. There are still many Tasmanian vineyards that are family owned and family run, and there's something to be kept about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're kind of micro businesses like us, but even though they're a lot bigger. Maybe not quite as micro.
What's smaller than micro?
Anyway, Skippy's in London says that they like the dogs at Craigie Knowe as well as the wine. So is that the old dogs or the dogs there now, Skippy's? That's what I'm wondering.
They got a few dogs there now.
Yeah, beautiful dogs. Help out a lot. Anyway, when John first planted, he got into wines because he travelled the world and lived in London and drunk a lot of fantastic wines, but was particularly fond of Bordeaux blends. So he originally planted Cab Sauv, Cab Franc, Cab Merlot and Petit Verdot, which is that classic Bordeaux blend, and we're going to taste that blend in a minute. Pinot Noir and Riesling followed soon after. But then in 2017, Glenn and Sandy took a long-term lease on another little vineyard less than 2 kilometres down the road, and that's enabled them to both expand the production and the range. So we're going to be trying Pinot Gris tonight. In fact, I think we should get onto it, Helen.
Yeah,
which comes from that second vineyard just down the road.
Yeah. So it's a 2019 Pinot Gris that we're tasting. Now, just to give people a little bit of a heads up, there's not a lot of the Pinot Gris left. In fact, most of it's sold out. We've got a few bottles at the farm shed. And once it's sold out, it will then move on to the next vintage of Pinot Gris. And that's okay. We're happy to wait for the next vintage. The next, I was talking to Glenn today about this year's vintage, and like many people, I think the vintage was down, as in the quantity was a little bit down, the quality's up, due to various weather factors, etc. But Glenn did say that even though they actually did have an increase in their Riesling and their Pinot Gris this vintage, their Cabernet was the one that was down. But the reason why their Cabernet was down was because they've been doing some remedial work on the vines over this past year. So they sort of expected it to be down a bit, and they weren't unhappy about that. So I think it bodes well for the next vintage. So anyway, I mean, no doubt this vintage will be good too. I mean, the Cab Sav that we're tasting is 2016, so we've got a few to go in between. We're doing a Pinot Gris.
I don't know if people realise what a hard job we have and the pressure that we're under, because
yes.
We've got 22 producers on the East Coast. There's probably 170 different types of wine. We have over 90 in the farm shed, so we're gradually expanding the range. And they keep new vintages.
Subi, there's 365 days in the year.
Yes, that's right.
It's okay. We can do it.
Okay. Well,
and it's a bit like painting the opera house. You just start at one end, and by the time you get to the other side, you've got to start at the one end again.
That's right. We can't even fit in dry July. So,
all right. So, Pinot Gris. Can I tell you about Pinot Gris? Because the most oft asked question about Pinot Gris is, what's the difference between a Pinot Gris and a Pinot Grigio, and why do some vineyards call it a Pinot Gris and others call it a Pinot Grigio? To give you the really simple answer is that it is exactly the same grape. The grape is a Pinot Gris that was originally came from the Burgundy area of France. So Gris translate as grey, and the grape is a sort of a grey, blue, pinkish purple sort of colour. So now it's grown more closer to the Alsace. It's Alsatian. How about that region? And and so the Pinot Grigio is just the Italian name for the same thing. So Grigio means the same thing in Italian. Gris is the same thing in French. So it's actually the same.
That's right.
Right. Now it's also if you like, it's a mutant variety of the Pinot Noir. So and that's why it's if you look at the grape, it doesn't look like a white grape, but officially it is a white grape in terms of winemaking thing. So that's interesting. Now it came.
Sorry.
Yeah,
go on. I'm just remembering that in week 2, when you were unable to join us, that when Kyle sat in with me, we must have done a Pinot Gris then, because he told us a little bit of this then.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
You didn't tell me that. I don't remember.
Oh, no, I had totally forgotten. I think we did the Cape Bernier Pinot Gris. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So keep going.
I think the Cape Bernier is a Pinot Grigio. Oh, no, the Brim Creek is a Pinot Grigio.
Indeed. Yeah.
So as far as Australia's history with Pinot Gris goes, is that it actually was introduced in Australia into the Hunter Valley in like 1836. So it's been in Australia for a long time, but nothing really happened for a long time until the 1990s. So in the early 1990s, it was introduced by a couple who winemaking on the Mornington Peninsula. They were called the Queelies, and funnily enough, I've just spent 2 months on the Mornington Peninsula.
2.5, not that I'm counting.
Well, 2 months there, 2 weeks here. Anyway, back to the Queelies and their vineyard on the Mornington Peninsula. It's actually at a place called Main Ridge, which was probably 1.5 kilometres from where I've just spent 2 months. So the Queelies first introduced, apart from the Hunter Valley introduction, the other one was on the Mornington Peninsula. So it's really interesting because they planted it in 1993, but it didn't really take off until the 2000s when it really became a much more popular wine. So that's known as a Pinot Gris. The Pinot Gris are very much in the cool climate regions. As a white wine. The other difference I forgot is the difference between a Gris and a Grigio is often no difference in the grape, but difference in the winemaking and the harvesting of the grape. So often, and this is always different with every vineyard, but often the Pinot Grigio is taken off the vine early, and the Pinot Gris is taken off the vine later. And
those Italians couldn't wait, I'm sure.
That's right. So what that means in terms of the flavour, Oh, then it moves into the making of it. Often, not always, but often, the Pinot Grigio is cold fermented in stainless steel vats, whereas the Pinot Gris is barrel fermented, which gives it a much more complex, rich texture, whereas the Pinot Grigio is often a much lighter, fresh, zestier sort of flavour. So I'm sure there are Grigios and Pinots that sort of, the Gris, that sort of span that spectrum. But anyway, that's the technical of it.
If in France they leave the grapes on a little longer, does that mean that they tend to be a little sweeter?
That's right. There is a sweetness. Yeah. There's often a sweetness to the Pinot Gris that isn't in the Pinot Grigios. The Grigios are usually much drier and citrusy and zesty. The Pinot and simpler. There's not the complexity. So the Pinot Gris, God, you get mixed up with the names, don't you? The Pinot Gris are much more complex, full-bodied, and really good with pairing with some sort of more complex foods, more robust food like pâtés and lambs, light meats and stuff. Whereas the Grigio is much more about salads and scallops and sort of light seafood. Anyway,
aglio olio, perhaps.
Aglio olio. You've been talking to me for 24 years about aglio olio. You still haven't made it for me.
Might one day. Anyway, back to the wine.
Oh, sorry. Back to the wine. Okay. I just want to confess that I haven't seen a human being for 2 days, so I'm just rabbiting on, really.
Well, you'll see that there are 2 different labels. So this is the estate label. A lot of the bigger ones we've talked about before, having 2 labels, and the white label, sourcing the grapes from the long leased vineyard at the Glen Heriot site, is designed to be easy drinking. So it's fermented. The fermentation was started in stainless steel, then finished off in a seasoned French oak cask. It's got notes of banana, pear.
So see, that's halfway between what I just explained.
Yeah, exactly. Notes of banana, pear, apples, and a hint of spice, and a slightly dry finish. And who makes it, Helen? Who makes it?
It's made at Springvale. In fact, all Craigie Knowe wines are made at Springvale. By what year are we talking? So the Cab Sav was made because that's 2016. Was made by Matt, but Matt's gone from Spring 19 Pinot Gris. Is made by Subi, you know his name, at Springvale, the new winemaker at Springvale.
Yes,
Barry.
I think I'll get back to you with that.
Okay.
We better move along because I've just flashed low battery. Sorry about that. So, moving on to the Cab Sav, a classic Bordeaux blend of the Cab Sav, Franc Merlot, and Petit Verdot that we spoke about before. They, Glenn and Sandy say that, they're really fortunate having the oldest vines in the area. They're really fortunate having an ideal microclimate and also on really rich volcanic soils in that Cranbrook Valley where they are. They're just off the old main road. They moved it because it used to keep flooding. So this one's open fermented, hand plunged, matured for 18 months in new and old French oak. It's full bodied, great tannins and structure. It's a dark. It looks full bodied.
It's got a really rich colour and and it's really nice on the glass. It's got some nice legs on the glass. It's lovely.
Yeah, look. It's the same blend as the Bend that we're going to do next week. So it's really interesting to compare this one this week and the Bend next week. Same blend of grapes.
So the blend being the Cab Sav, a little bit of Merlot, a little bit of Cab Franc, and a little bit of Petit Verdot. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'm getting blackberries.
Yeah, I got blackberries.
Bit of cherry. I like a bit of cherry and a bit of chocolate. Oh, speaking of which,
you get chocolate in everything. It doesn't matter what you taste. You get chocolate
everywhere. The ones that I really like.
There's some chocolate you prepared earlier.
So I haven't got anything elaborate tonight, but I wish we had time to tell you the story of John Ostwick and the hare. When you drop into the farm shed, just ask us about that. But meanwhile,
absolutely.
One day in the farm shed, we had two women walk in from over at Vineyard, and they said, "Oh, hi, we make chocolate. I've got a shack here." And Helen and I just looked at each other, and sometimes the communication after 24 years is like, you just know what the other one's thinking. So what we were thinking was, oh my God, there's so much bad chocolate around. How are we going to
No, there's so much chocolate around. No, there's so much chocolate around, and not all of it's fabulous.
Thank you, Helen, the diplomat. Anyway, they gave us a taste, and we've been selling it ever since. They're called Wild Island Tastes. This is the
if anybody can spell backwards, that's how you spell it.
Yeah, that says shipwrecked. There's also a really dark one with raspberries, but this one's got pepitas, Tasmanian sea salt,
and salted caramel.
Yeah, and
it goes
really well. It goes really well with both this Pinot Gris and this Cab Sauv.
Yeah, that's great. Listen, about that story with John Ostwick and the hare, I don't think that we can tell that story publicly over the internet anyway. So I think you have to come and hear it directly from us in the farm shed, because, there's a bit of the story that I'm not sure if I want to be made public.
Mr. Magoozle has a bottle of Craigie Knowe 2005 mixed blend.
Have you, Mr. Magoozle? How come we haven't tasted that with you yet?
Yeah.
There's a date.
All right. Well, we always say that it's going to be 15 minutes. It's been 22, so we better be winding up right now.
Okay.
Thank you. Pinot Gris and chocolate heaven, says None Such Distillery. And so is your slow gin and your slow malt. We'll be seeing
what
you
about
soon.
The whiskey?
Yeah. Anyway, time to wind up. Thank you so much for joining us live. We love knowing that we're not just talking to ourselves.
Although we're quite happy talking to ourselves as well.
Yeah, in these COVID times.
That's right. I've been doing it for nearly 2 weeks now, talking to myself.
Now, I have been also thanking the people that join us afterwards, because after this evening it goes on Facebook, Instagram, and onto our website. Thank you so much. I've been saying the last couple of weeks, thank you, you other 400 people. Well, we're up to 464.
Excellent. Woo!
So greetings to you. Hope to see you in Bicheno at the farm shed. If you want to check out any of these wines, pop onto our website, check out our online shop. Give us a call once you know what you want, or order online.
Absolutely.
But we love talking about wine, and if you mention this virtual wine tasting, we'll give you free postage.
And
how about that?
And next week we're doing the Bend. We're doing the Bend Riesling and the Bend Cab Sauv. So if you want to purchase that, give us a ring and we'll get it in the mail to you. Free postage free postage for those two bottles anyway. And next week we're going to be sitting right in our house doing it there. She might want me in another room because she might be used to this. I don't know.
Anyway, incurable romantic, we hope to see you too soon.
Fantastic.
Too. So thanks for joining us.
See you later, everyone.
Take care. Stay
Bye-bye.
safe. Bye.